Hello, Infiniteers! We are just about done with my Zootopia toy box. We have implemented all of the different police cases, and today I'm going to show you how to implement the logic for the job board over at ZPD headquarters. Now, this logic is very similar to what I did for Agent P's lair in my Phineas and Ferb toy box, and you may remember that in episode 16 of my Phineas and Ferb series, I showed you how to set up the logic so that when you approached Agent P's computer station, it would randomly pick one of the 5 missions for you to play. And I mentioned in that video that there was a way to do that so that it did not pick the same mission multiple times in a row, which was a possibility with the logic that I implemented there. And I talked you through how to do that, but I didn't actually implement it, nor did I provide a logic diagram for you to show you how to do it. And so I thought for my Zootopia toy box, I would go ahead and do that for you so you can see exactly how to do it. Now, in order to save time, I've already placed a few Creativitoys that we're going to need, and I'm going to place some more. And I'm going to do that because I don't want you to miss anything. But to start with, we have a counter, and a randomizer, and a logic gate. All right. And we're also going to put down a trigger area around the job board here, or the toy that I'm going to use for it. And I don't want to encapsulate it entirely. I want the player to approach the front of it. So we're going to place it like that. And I want them to get a little bit close to it. So we're going to make this box a little bit smaller so that they have to get right up to the job board, and I think that's probably good. I think actually I'll make it a little bit bigger. You don't want to get right up on it. Okay, so that's what we need for the job board. Now, there's also some changes that we need to make to each of the police cases, all right? So I'm going to pick up this logic gate and put it back because we're going to place a few more of these. And so we're going to come over to each of the different police cases, and you'll remember that for each of these, we had a button that we were using to kick off the mission, and that fed into a logic gate which drove the mission. We did that for every one of the police cases. So what we're going to do now, we're going to put down a second logic gate next to this one. Okay? And there's nothing fancy about this gate. We just need a second gate. So at the burning building, we're going to put one down. Over at the vandals that we implemented last time, we'll put another logic gate down. Over at the break-in, let's see, that was over here. And at the other break-in, which was over here in this version of the toy box. So we'll place that here, like that. And let's see, was there another one? We did the car chase. Oh, the bomber. Yeah. We implemented so many police cases, I can't keep them all straight. Alright. So for this toy box, I have 6 logic gates I have just pressed. We're not going to do that with the lost pet, because this was a side mission. And we're not going to do that with the stolen purse and the foot chase, because that was a side mission. Those were kicked off from up here. We're going to invoke those differently. But all the rest of those are going to be invoked from the job board. All right? Okay, and before I get too far along, let me remind you that I have logic diagrams on my blog that will help you out as we hook these up. The link's in the video description, and you may find it helpful to follow along on that diagram as you watch the video. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, well, there's several stages. Let me just kind of describe what we're doing here. So when the player approaches the job board, we want to use the randomizer to randomly pick one of those 6 cases. Okay? And when we do that, we're going to disable the job boards. They can only have 1 case at a time. And then when they finish the individual case that they're working on, we will re-enable this trigger area, and we're going to use the counter to keep track of the number of cases that they've done. And once they've played through all the cases, we're going to reset things so that they can play through them again. All right, so that's kind of the game plan here. So we'll start off on the trigger area. We'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing I want to do is come over to this logic gate and input. And we're only using the logic gate because I can't make a logic connection from the trigger area back to itself to deactivate itself. And so we pass it into the logic gate, and on the logic gate we do a new logic connection on output. We turn around and disable or deactivate the trigger area. Okay, so that ensures that we only do this one time. All right, the other thing the trigger area needs to do is invoke that randomizer. So we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We invoke the randomizer. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to use the counter to keep track of how many cases we've done. And as you recall, I have 6 of them. We have the Mad Bomber, we have the robbery over here with the car chase, we have the burning building, that's 3, we have the vandals we did last time, that's 4, and I have 2 break-in cases here, this one and this one. So that's a total of 6 cases that I have in this toy box. If you've implemented a 3rd break-in case, then you have 7. Or if you've only implemented some of the cases and not others, this count will be different for you, depending on how many of them you implemented. But for me, I have 6. So on the properties for our counter, we're going to set the target count to 6. Okay? We're going to turn off the visible display, and we'll have this counter reset itself when the target is reached. All right. Now, to connect to the individual cases, what we're going to do is come over to our randomizer. We'll do a new logic connection on random trigger 1. Let's do the Mad Bomber first, because that's the closest. So I'm going to input into the logic gate that we had previously, not the new one that I put down, the one that the button's connected to, and I'm going to input into that gate. Okay? And let's just go ahead and hook each of those up first on the randomizer. I think that would be the best way to go. On the randomizer, a new logic connection on random trigger 2. We'll do the car chase. And I'll just kind of work my way clockwise? Yeah, clockwise around the toy box. So this button is hooked up to this logic gate, so we'll input into there. The randomizer is basically taking the place of the buttons. So whatever the button is inputting into when you press the button, that's what our randomizer needs to invoke. So on the randomizer, on random trigger 3, we'll come over to the burning building case. And we'll input into that logic gate. You can see by having the button connected to a logic gate and everything else kicked off from the logic gate, I only need to make one connection from the randomizer over here, not a bunch of them. So this saves us some work. All right, random trigger 4. We'll invoke the vandals and input into that gate. On the randomizer over here, a new logic connection on random trigger 5. We'll do our first break-in case right over here. That's this logic gate. And on the randomizer, new logic connection on random trigger 6 will invoke the other break-in case, which in this toy box is over in this corner, over here. Okay, so that invokes all of the missions. Okay. Now we only want to invoke these things one time, all right? So to ensure that when we step into this trigger area, we only pick a case that has not been done yet, what we're going to do is use this new logic gate that we put down to close this one, okay? So on this one, for example, the randomizer invokes this just like the button did. So on this logic gate, this is the mission starting logic gate. We do a new logic connection on output. Come over to our new logic gate that we just put down and input into that. And a new logic connection on that on output. We'll turn around and close the logic gate here. Okay, and the reason again why we need this logic gate is the same reason we needed one over there. It's because I can't make a logic connection from this gate back to itself. So we need to use this as kind of a pass-through to route the signal through. Okay, so we're going to do that for each step. We'll take this one step at a time here. So on the logic gate, this is the one connected to the button and the randomizer now. For the car chase, new logic connection on output, input into the new gate, on output from the new gate, turn around and close that gate. Same thing over at the burning building, on output from the mission start gate, we'll input into the new gate. And from the new gate, new logic connection on output, close that gate. And we're going to do that same thing all the way through. And I could have done some of this ahead of time if I'd had structured this video a little bit differently. But I wanted to do this kind of slow because I want you to see exactly what you need to do. But I'm just doing the same 2 steps here at every mission. And hooking up our new logic gate. So on output from this one, input into the new one, on output from that, we close the gate. And then lastly, over here, same thing. And by closing these gates, it's going to ensure that the randomizer doesn't pick this mission again. So on output from this, we close this gate. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we've hooked them all up. All right. So let's say, for example, we step into the trigger area. It invokes the randomizer. The randomizer comes over here and invokes this gate to start the Mad Bomber. All right. In addition to kicking off the mission, this invokes our new logic gate here, which closes this gate. Okay. So the player finishes that mission. They come over and pick a new mission. That comes over to the randomizer, and let's say that picks the same mission again. So that tries to input into this gate, but it's closed now. And so that mission will not get kicked off. What we want to have happen now, though, is if this gate is closed, we need to go back to the randomizer and tell it to pick a different mission. And so on this gate, again, this is the one the button and the randomizer are connected to. we're going to do a new logic connection. When the input is blocked, because the gate is closed, we will come back over to our randomizer and invoke it again. And hopefully it'll pick a different one this time. And if it doesn't, and it ends up coming back here, this will just send it back over there again. Just keep picking another one. Stop picking me, I'm not available. That's what we're setting up here. So we're going to make that connection now on each of these gates. So the one for the car chase, a new logic connection when the input is blocked. Invoke the randomizer to pick a different case. At the burning building, same thing. New logic connection on input blocked. Come over to the randomizer and pick a different case. And some of you can probably already detect a potential problem here, and that is what happens when all of the logic gates become closed. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. You're getting ahead of me, if you think that. All right, so when the vandal case, that logic gate is closed, we come back over here, invoke the randomizer. On the burning building case, new logic connection when the input is blocked there. Go back to the randomizer and pick a different case. Oop, not that one, we just did that one. This one. New logic connection when the input is blocked. Go back to the randomizer. Okay, so now that will ensure that the next thing that we pick will be something different. Now, what happens when you have finished playing all of the cases? Well, that's where we need to reset, and that's what we're going to use the counter for. All right, so on the logic gate for each mission, the one that kicks it off, the one the button and the randomizer are connected to, we're going to make another logic connection. We're going to do a new logic connection on output. We're going to come over and increment the counter. By 1. And we're going to count up the number of missions that we have played as we play them. So a new logic connection over here on output. And increment by 1. And we're going to do this for each of the missions. So every mission needs to increment that counter when it's invoked, so we know how many missions we've played. And again, it's the one that's connected to the button and the randomizer over here to invoke it. So hopefully you're following it along without too many difficulties here. It's not difficult to do, it's just, as you can see, once again, there's a number of connections to make because we have a lot of cases. And having a lot of different little mini missions and cases and things to do is good. Just means there's a little bit more work. All right, 2 more to do. New logic connection on output. Increment the counter. And the last case, that's the break-in over here. New logic connection on output. Increment the counter by 1. Okay. So, excuse me. So once this counter hits 6, which again is the target count set in the properties, that means we have played through all of the missions. All right? And so this needs to do a few things here. What we need to do is reopen all of the gates. Okay? So on the counter, new logic connection when the target is reached. We will come over to each of the logic gates for the missions and open them. Because now we've played through all the missions. Now that mission's available again to play. So new logic connection when target is reached on the counter. We'll open up this gate over here for the car chase. And so this ensures that you can replay the missions multiple times, as many times as you want in the toy box. But you're not going to get the same mission 2 times in a row, more than likely. Unless you've played through all 6 missions and it resets, and then the first mission it gives you happens to be the one that you just played. But that's the only possibility for getting the same case in a row. If you just play through the missions one time, you'll never get the same mission twice. And so this is really, really good. It's a little more work to set up than it was in the Phineas and Ferb toy box, because there I was just randomly picking the next case and wasn't doing anything to guarantee that you couldn't play through the same case more than one time in a row. But here we're setting it up to do that, and it takes a little bit more work, but it's not too bad. As you can see, we don't have a lot of new controls that we've added. We do have a number of new logic connections here, but not too bad. The target is reached. Come over and open the logic gate for the last case. Okay, and there we go. All right. So now we've got the randomizer hooked up. It's invoking the missions. Each mission, when it's invoked, is closing its starting logic gate and incrementing the counter. And when the counter reaches its maximum, it resets itself, because that's how I set the property. And it reopens all the logic gates for the missions so that you can play them again. The last little hiccup here that we need to deal with is the fact that this gate is deactivated after you pick your first mission. So we need to reactivate this at the end of every mission. All right? And that's different for every mission. So for example, for the Mad Bomber, we know the mission is done here when the friendly wave generator for the Mad Bomber, when that wave is defeated, because he was thrown into the door for the police headquarters. So on this toy, for the Mad Bomber case, the friendly wave generator at the end, this is the one we've connected to our action enforcer and our sound effects. We're going to do a new logic connection on that one. When that wave is defeated, In addition to everything else that does at the end of that mission, we're going to come over here to the trigger area and activate it. So the player can come back over here and get their next mission. All right. For the car chase, over here, the end of the mission is determined by the enemy wave generator. So once the car is destroyed and the enemies jump out and you defeat them, that's when that mission's over. So on the enemy wave generator for that, new logic connection, when the wave is defeated, we want to come back over and activate the trigger area. For the burning building, this mission is over when the logic AND receives both of its inputs. So on the logic AND, a new logic connection, when this is complete, in addition to ending the burning building mission, we come over here and activate the trigger area. For the case of the vandals, this case is over when the wave is destroyed. So on the enemy wave generator here, new logic connection. When that wave is defeated, we come activate our trigger area. And then for each of the break-in cases, this one and the other one, the mission ending is governed by our mission end logic gate. And this is the one that's ending each of those missions. So on here, we'll do a new logic connection. On output from there, we'll come over and activate our trigger area. And that one connection handles all of the break-in cases. Okay? And that's it. That is all of the logic for that. So we've hooked up the trigger area. That goes through here to deactivate itself, and it invokes a mission. This attempts to invoke missions, and it keeps looping until it finds a mission whose logic gate is in the open state. And when it does, that mission gets kicked off and it increments the counter. And when the counter's target is reached, we go reopen all of the logic gates so we can replay the missions again. And at the end of each mission, we reactivate the trigger area so we can come back and get our next mission. All right. Now, there's a couple of other little things, because you might be wondering, what about the side quests? Well, you can use whatever you want, really, to kick off each of these missions. So the lost pet and the foot chase. And what I'm going to do is, I thought for the lost pet, it'd be nice to have something to do once all of the cases have been done, because this will be reset and reopen the gates, and all the new missions that you get off the mission board will be things that you've played. So I thought it'd be nice to throw something in here that hasn't been played before. So on our counter, we'll do a new logic connection when the target is reached. So once they've played through all the missions one time, then we'll come over here and kick off the lost pet mission, and we'll input into that gate. Okay? So that gives them something new to do after they've played through all the police cases. Now, as for the foot chase, you can kick this off whenever you want. The easiest thing to do is to tie it into the end of one of the other missions. And the Weasel's Revenge that we did gets kicked off when both of the break-in cases are solved. So it'd be nice to tie into maybe one of the others. So I came over to the burning building. And on the logic AND for the burning building, this is what I did, is a new logic connection. When that's complete, we'll kick off the foot chase. Whoops, that's up here. So we'll input into that. That's the logic gate that kicks off the foot chase. Okay, so that's how I tied that in. You can tie it in any way you want. You can maybe do something random if you want, and maybe try set up another counter and have it go off after the third mission is done, or whatever you want to do with that. But that was an easy connection to make. All right, and at this point, I would recommend that you save your toy box, okay? And then play through all of the cases by approaching the job board. Use the job board, not the buttons. And come over to the job board, get your next case, go do that, come back to the job board and do that. Play through all of the missions at least once, and then do it again so that you can verify the logic is working and the gates are reopened and all of that, okay? And then once you've done that, then you can come over and delete all of the buttons because you won't need them anymore. So you can delete that button. You can delete that button. You can delete this button. And this one. And this one. And this one. And you can also delete the buttons for the side quests. So you can delete this one here. You can delete that one there. And we didn't have a button on this one. Okay? So you can delete all those buttons because you don't need them anymore. Everything is now going to be tied to the job board and the progress of the police cases as you solve them. And once you've deleted the buttons, then you can move all the creativitoys for each case below the terrain to hide them, because we are now done with all of these toys. So you can get all of these toys here out of the toy box and move them below the terrain, and that will clear the streets. There's a lot of them to move, but this is the time to do that. Let's go ahead and do all that cleanup. Of course, you want to leave the locators out and the cameras and things like that, but all of these types of controls you're going to want to move out of the way. And the friend generator over here, you're going to want to move that out of the way, and so on. And sound effect generators, move those below the train and get them out of the way. All right. And then next time, we will wrap up this toy box by implementing the day-night cycle and the various townsperson generation zones around the toy box, which will finally populate our empty city, so it isn't empty anymore. And then we'll be done. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video today, and if so, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let me know what you think of the job board and the logic for it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already, so you don't miss the final episode of this series. That's all for me today. Take care.